to the Lamar haters, okay? Fair warning, if you don't like this, like you're like. So what I did, Bobby, I didn't put most of Jack's responses in here because I felt like we could maybe rebut some of them ourselves. But if you want to go see Jack's, rebuttals and all of that, you guys can go check it out. So we know you're messing, Tila. I grabbed 3 different clips that I thought were just bad of what they were saying about Lamar. So we'll start with this one. A young lady who claims that other players don't respect Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson be the best player in the NFL when he's got 2 quarterbacks in just the AFC that don't even respect him. His peers don't respect him because if you caught the hot mic, it was the 11th of November. You had Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes post-game talking about how they were going to see each other in the AFC Championship game. I'm sorry, but doesn't Lamar Jackson also play in the AFC?
He does.
So among peers.
So they don't respect him?
They were counting on playing each other in the AFC Championship game when your Ravens, your Lamar Jackson's Ravens, were expected to make the playoffs as well. They were totally discounting him. So he doesn't have any respect among his peers.
Lamar Jackson's probably one of the most respected players amongst his peers. You ask there was actually a fan.
I guess I did leave in some Jack stuff. Okay, here we go.
There was a player survey that said who's the most overrated player in the NFL, and it was Josh Allen.
Not to mention the Players Association unanimously voted. But,
You cut out for a second. What'd you say?
Well, not to mention that the Players Association named him their MVP this year.
Yeah, they had their all pros, and they put Lamar first team all pro.
Not to mention every single week when part of our, in-season agenda items for content is to check in with the opposite team, which is typically what I do for us, and listening to their press conference. Every single defensive coordinator, every single standout defensive player unloads their unrelenting, never-ending, endless respect levels for Lamar. But maybe she hasn't watched those clips.
Yeah, no, this one was probably the most wild claim. Like, there's some stuff that it's like, there's the biggest knock on Lamar is that, right, you're not like going to the Super Bowl. You haven't won the Super Bowl. It's the playoffs and whatever, even though he's turning the playoff corner. I mean, he's certainly in the last 2 years been better in the playoffs. But like, I literally dropped my jaw where I was like, your claim is that players don't respect him, and your evidence is that 2 players said, hey, I'll see you again, which they say so often. They say so often. Like Lamar and Mahomes played week 1, so maybe they didn't say it there. And then he played Josh Allen week 4. Like, it's like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say that, and sometimes it'll come true and sometimes it won't. Like, do I think that in that moment they were like discounting the chance that the Lamar could be there? No, they're just trying to be respectful to one another. Like, that is bananas. So much so that like players are angry that the NFL celebrates the Associated Press All-Pro instead of the Players All-Pro. I cannot tell you how many players have been like, this is ridiculous that the media gets to do this. Why wouldn't you do peers? So you had, I didn't pull it, but Micah Parsons is like, it's crazy. He's like, we should be voting on it. I went against Lamar, not the media. Like, I went against him. And Torrey Smith talked about how many NFL players were like, this is crazy. Later on in the show, we have a clip from Deion Sanders, a former player, probably the hottest, biggest name coach right now in all of football, not just pros, put in college. Obviously, he's not a GOAT yet. That belongs to like the Andy Reids and the Bill Belichick's of the world. But it's like, I cannot tell you how player after player after player always put Lamar up on the pedestal. And so the fact that she said that while cherry picking a quick exchange between these 2 quarterbacks was insane to me. Absolutely insane.
Oh, it's flirting with on the line of not even being worthy of a response, to be honest.
No, it was probably why like he stayed calm and he's like,
it's so it shows such a lack of awareness that it actually begs the question if it's a parody skit. I mean, it does give you that impression.
Well,
Um,
it's definitely why I won't get as so I definitely get hype when I hear MVP voters saying stuff that I think is wrong about Lamar. And I do that because I know that they have, they're saying that to a large audience and they have a vote. And these MVP votes have an impact on their legacy. It has an impact on their Hall of Fame. It has an impact on all of that. So like I get more hyped. I can't get as hyped for these guys because as you listen to them, it's just like they just don't know. Like that was such and I'm sure she's a fine person, but that was such an ignorant comment to make by taking a 2-second clip versus the heavy evidence that goes the other way that like I don't know any players that respect him more. How about Houston Texans head coach his name is
D'Amico
Ryans, him saying, "Okay, I went up against both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and to me, it's Lamar Jackson for MVP, easy." Like, didn't even hesitate. Like it was just one of those. It just felt like an ignorant comment. So here's another one that's really bad, really, really bad.
That he will never get there is because he has all of the things you can't teach. He has talent. He has that it factor, that X factor that you really can't teach. But I just feel like he's not taking care of the stuff you can teach, like learning the book, checking out all your reads before you decide that you're going to run for it. And I think it matters way more to him to prove that you can be a top 10 quarterback of his style than it is to concede a little bit, learn some reads, learn some plays in order to take that team to the Super Bowl. I think it's more important to him personally to prove all those doubters wrong, that he should have been a wide receiver or whatever, than it is to take his team and lead his team to the Super Bowl, which he needs to be considered for that top 10 conversation. Yeah. Do you think that he could stand to be a little bit more cerebral when it comes to running the huddle and being the leader of the team in the huddle, rather than being like, physically, I'm going to get it done for you?
I don't think he's just like a go out and do it guy, personally.
Well, to quote to the late, great Brittany Murphy in Uptown Girls, fundamentals are the building blocks of fun. And everyone will say that he is having so much fun, but I just don't feel like he's trying hard enough to study and take care of it. I just don't see that from him.
Bobby, she for sure is not watching the Ravens. That was bad. There were so many bad comments in there.
This is as I mentioned in the top, this is first time I've consumed this, and it will certainly be the first and the last.
Yeah.
that is for sure. I mean, it's honest. Like I said, I becoming increasingly motivated to almost not feel like this is worthy of answering. It's or rebutting. It's insanity.
It's not worthy, but just so it doesn't stand to go unchallenged, I'll go ahead and do it. First of all, where she claims that he's trying to prove that he can win with this style, as in, a true dual threat quarterback. If anything, if you could accuse him of trying to prove anything, it's that he was trying to prove that he was a passer. And that's why his mom had to call him and curse him out after that Eagles game, asking him to run more. And what was the biggest knock at him on him after the AFC Championship game? It's run more. So if you had to go one way or the other, it would be that one. But on top of it, he really isn't trying to prove that over winning a Super Bowl. He has said time and time and time again, he will do whatever it takes to win. And when everybody keeps going back to this elementary binary, like, oh, do you need to run more? Do you need to pass more? Forth between that. So game plan where the defense wants to shut down the run, then he will pass. And then if their game plan is to shut down the pass, then he will run. And if anything, he just remember he had to be chewed out by his mom for not running enough. So that was terrible. Then she started talking about reads. Are we talking about like 2018 when they put him in on the fly and they didn't have an offense built around him yet? Like, are we going back to 2018, Lamar? Like, are we also talking about the Greg Roman era when there wasn't a sophisticated passing game, according to Steve Young, according to Steve Smith Sr.? who blasted Greg Roman for not putting in a professional NFL late level of a passing game with reads and all that kind of stuff? Are we talking about a Greg Roman era where he wouldn't empower Lamar Jackson to make audibles and calls at the line of scrimmage, whereas Todd Monken has? Are we talking about the Lamar Jackson, I mean, who has destroyed blitzes when at one time it used to, like, especially in the Greg Roman era, it used to like stop him? Like, what are we talking about? How about all the times where people are like, again, in the AFC Championship game, run, Lamar, run. And he would sit back there going not only through all of his reads, but asking them to continue to run and make make those reads on the fly that weren't even like, it's insane. Not cerebral. Oh,
Yeah.
And then she uses Uptown Girls quote. That was like, that was her fitting. And then she got an applause from the audience.
Well, timed applause, right? Just like the in-person shows, those are what do they call that? Timed applause or scripted applause.
Oh, Bobby,
Yeah, that's a tough scene. It's a tough scene.
that was rough. That
Tough
was
scene.
rough. That oof. Okay, the last one I kind of put together. I meshed together 3 clips together because this rebuttal that I have for this isn't as, I don't think it's as seen on the surface. It's not as easy to rebut, but the reason why I put these 3 together is I want you guys to notice when people use Lamar Jackson's teammates against him. Well, actually, they're always using him against him. Let me rephrase that. When they play well, how they use that against him. And then when they play poorly and you point that out, it's an excuse. So there's cherry picking going on when it comes to when you're allowed to talk about what his teammates are doing.
He's going to fumble, he's going to miss a snap. He's going to mess up somewhere. Just on what he's done.
Yeah. So who made the mistake in the second half of the game? Lamar fumbled the ball in the second half of the game. Lamar Jackson dropped a pass that hit him in the chest in the second half of the game.
Fair, okay. So let's put on Mark Andrews, not the guy who gets the ball every snap.
We talk about this season.
Okay, so you see how he did that? So in that instance, his teammates it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Yes, he has the ball every snap, but he also distributes the ball. And he can't catch the plays. He can't hold on to the fumbles. So notice, okay, so we're not going to even acknowledge what Mark Andrews did because Lamar touches the ball every snap. So in this case, we can't talk about the teammates, right? But maybe in another case we can.
He had all of these weapons. Patrick Mahomes didn't have all these weapons. He had Zay Flowers. Hold on, let me finish. He had Zay Flowers. He had Likely. He had Mark Andrews. He had King Henry. He had Justin Hill. Who can you compare that to Patrick Mahomes right now?
So you're mentioning all these things, right?
Right.
Lamar had the better weapons. Mahomes didn't.
Yeah.
And in the season, regular season, who outplayed the other player?
Well, if you want to be honest, you say Patrick Mahomes outplayed him. Because if it was that true, he would be in the number 1 seed. Was the Ravens the number 1 seed? No. Were they the number 1 seed?
Ravens had the worst defense in the NFL for 9 weeks.
Oh, so you're making excuses for your.
Okay, did you see how he just flipped?
Yes, he did.
On one hand, he says, wait a minute, you have Zay Flowers, you have Mark Andrews, you have Isaiah Likely, and you have King Henry. He can use his good play against Lamar, but as soon as you bring up the defense being the 32nd pass defense through 10 weeks of the season or 9 weeks of the season, then it's an excuse. It's cherry picking non-stop, and there's one more.
Best player in the NFL.
Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Brett Favre, Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
Which one of those guys had to bring on the greatest running back of all time to their team to try and make it to the Super Bowl, and they still didn't make it to the Super Bowl? That was Lamar Jackson this year. They had to bring on Derrick Henry, basically the greatest running back of all time, and they could not even make it to the conference championship. You're saying to me, if Tom Brady added on a Derrick Henry, he would have gone undefeated yet again.
So I'm confused. A top 10 player of all time can't have a top teammate?
I'm saying when you're looking at the top 10 quarterbacks of all time, you don't remember the running backs. Who was the running back on the Broncos
Terrell Davis.
when the Broncos won the Super Bowl?
So
Terrell
does
Davis.
Marvin Harrison with Peyton Manning count?
I mean, you could say that about Mark Andrews. You could say that about. I'm not talking about receivers. I'm talking about they brought on Derrick Henry to try and win a Super Bowl. They couldn't even make the conference championship with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. You have Derrick Henry on your team, man.
Yeah, and this is why I said earlier. Again, I'm not downplaying Derrick Henry, but the Ravens got to the AFC Championship game without Derrick Henry. But that's what they do. It's like when you have good team play, you use it against Lamar. If the teammates fail Lamar, it's an excuse. It's completely cherry picking and it's totally hypocritical. That was the last one.
Can we get to some legitimate content now from Prime?
Get to Deion Sanders.
From somebody you grew up idolizing, from somebody who referred to you as preacher girl during your time in the organization and called you that, didn't he, last year on Radio Row, or maybe remembered who you were?
We used to talk about the Lord, he said to me last year. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And he walks around Radio Row just like he did this year with an entourage. You think Cam Newton's got an entourage? Wait till you see the way Coach Prime walks right down Radio Row. It was really something. But he joined the Dan Patrick Show and stuck his neck out there about this year's MVP race and how it ultimately was ended up decided last week on NFL Honors.
Won Lamar, and Lamar didn't win an MVP award that he should have won last night. So there's always going to be criticism when your gift is exemplified tremendously.
But Josh Allen runs.
Yeah, but you don't criticize him for running. You've never criticized him for running. You've criticized Lamar for running. That's a great analogy. I'm glad you said that.
No, I've criticized Josh Allen because he didn't take care of the football.
No, a lot of people have, yes.
I mean, sure. I can only speak for me.
Yes.
You're speaking in generalities. Lamar Jackson, I thought was going to win the MVP.
Thank you.
I thought he was going to win the MVP.
I did too.
Josh Allen is taking care of the football this year better, and I thought that was the
better than
biggest
Lamar?
knock. No, better for him.
Oh, okay. Both guys are tremendous. We can't put Josh down and lift Lamar up. But that MVP trophy, I thought, was Lamar's.
I would have given it to Saquon Barkley.
No.
Yeah.
Lamar. Well, because he's here. Would you have given it to him if he wasn't here?
He ran for 2,000 yards. He changed their offense.
Yeah, but that has been done before. A multitude of times.
We're never going to have an MVP be a running back again.
But Lamar, what he did, I forget his statistics, but his turnovers, he had 3 interceptions or something? 4 interceptions?
Yeah.
In what, 18, 19 games?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know.
That's absurd. Like, what he's doing is what everybody said he couldn't do. And he did it to another level, and it still wasn't glorified.
I spoke to so many players that echoed those sentiments right there from Deion last week. I mentioned on the show Cam Newton being one of them who was perplexed and almost took it personally that Lamar didn't win MVP. And then we haven't even had a chance to catch up on this yet. But I ran into Mark Ingram on my final night at a steakhouse. And, you and I met Mark on last year's Radio Row in Vegas. And I had a chance to, in 2019 and 2020, when I was working with the radio shows, I would do various gigs with him. And so we had a great chance to catch up. And so for a couple minutes, we were just chatting back and forth. And he went in that direction. He's like, my man L was snubbed. He was going off. And so, it's not just the Deion's throughout whether it's post or current player community that feel like this was just a total farce.
Deion Sanders, who's like the interception king, right, of his era, just like could go anywhere, could do anything. And this man is talking about how it's insane that Lamar Jackson only threw 4 touchdowns, or 4 interceptions in 17 games.
Yep.
I mean, he knows how few that is. And then he talks about, this was the other thing with the MVP conversation, which bothered me because people kept saying, well, Allen's doing more than we expected, right? And yet nobody expected Lamar to put up 40 plus touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Nobody expected Lamar to put up 4,000 yards passing and 900 yards rushing. Nobody expected him to have the 4th best ever passer rating. Nobody expected that. No, I didn't hear a single soul make a prediction like that. In fact, the predictions I heard was that, okay, now they can hand it off to Derek more. And yet Derek did run a lot, almost 2,000. And yet Lamar's numbers kept going. The fact that he had Derrick Henry and his numbers even got better, despite all the production that Derek had, is a reason to vote for him, not vote against him. So it's just funny to go from those haters clips to Deion Sanders or Micah Parsons earlier, and them just being like, he should have won it. He should have won it. And people are just holding on to like 2018 narratives, or just completely wrong narratives. But I will definitely put stock more in Deion's opinion.